And good evening, and welcome to Worldview 2's Washington Report for this evening, June 23rd, 2025. And President Trump says that we are going to have a peace deal. We're going to deal with that tonight, of course, obviously, with none other than Jim Paff. Jim, welcome back to the broadcast. His website, by the way, is theconservativecaucus.org, theconservativecaucus.org. Hope you had a great weekend.
And you too. Yeah, I did. It was great.
All right, here we go, folks. Here's the announcement. Congratulations to everyone. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now, when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in-progress final missions. For 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended. Officially, Iran will start the ceasefire, and upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire, and upon the 24th hour, an official end of the 12-day war will be saluted by the world. During each ceasefire, the other side will remain peaceful and respectful on the assumption that everything works as it should, which it will. I would like to congratulate both countries, Israel and Iran, on having the stamina, courage, and intelligence to end what should be called the 12-day war. This is a war that could have gone on for years to destroy the entire Middle East, but it didn't and never will. God bless Israel. God bless Iran. God bless the Middle East. God bless the United States of America. God bless the world. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. All right. What are your thoughts, Jim?
Well, first of all, I do love the way that he approaches his posts. I mean, it's definitely the promo, and everything.
He's president of the world, is what it sounds like. God bless the world.
Well, listen, we'll see. I have been talking to people that I know, and no one seems to know precisely what this is all about, and that doesn't mean it's not there. I did get something just right last minute here that CNN is quoting a senior Iranian official that Tehran has not received any ceasefire proposal and sees no reason for one. I don't know what to make of it just yet. I mean, I hope that this is real. I think it'd be fantastic. It seems to me that Donald Trump's not going to announce this unless something is there. But if it does happen, I mean, I think it'll hold for some time, but we're likely to get right back to where we were sometime later, it seems to me. And you and I were talking about that, and I think I agree. It's just that what has to happen is the regime does need to change. I do not want us to be part of that process in any manner, militarily. If we try to negotiate it, that's one thing. But the current regime there is not reliable. Their motives are totally different than what the international group of nations thinks, although they get this compliant help in the UN from time to time. So we'll see. But I think Donald Trump doesn't announce this unless he thinks he's got something. So right now I'm going to go with that and see what happens afterwards.
All right. Here is, I don't know, again, if this is legit. No ceasefire, fake news. Zionists are in trouble, says Syed Mohammed Orande. That's one tweet that's out there tonight. That's Vivid News. We also have one here saying that Amwaj Media reports Iranian sources confirm that ceasefire with Israel has been agreed. According to one source, the truce will go into effect at 3:30 a.m. Jerusalem time. So who knows? We're going to have to just let the story flesh itself out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And listen, one reason that I can accept the fact, or at least have a chance to accept the fact that it's happening, is that they did kind of lob those missiles over into Qatar and other places in the region as a show of force rather than any attempt to do damage or real damage.
Right.
And, they are in that save face mode. So we'll see how that plays out. They've done this before. They did it in 2020 after the Soleimani thing. We'll see how that plays out as well.
All right. Well, we'll keep looking to see if we can find, any confirmation on this ceasefire and if both sides have indeed agreed to it. You know, I do find this interesting a story, though, from back in 2023. Iran says it's discovered what could be the world's second largest lithium deposit. I wonder if our deal with Iran will involve any mineral rights like we did with Ukraine. Then we can use it to back our digital currency to replace the Federal Reserve's Fed dollars.
If Reza Pahlavi becomes the Shah of Iran, then that might be a possibility. Otherwise, there's no way it's going to happen.
Which to me, I know that
regime.
People are out there saying that the Shah was a dictator and blah, blah, blah. You know, no leader's perfect, but Annie Cyrus, who was born and raised over there and has followed and tracked this family for so long, refutes those things. She said his regime was going after the Shah, after the Ayatollah. And if they had let him do it, if he had really wanted to do, if he had done what he could have done with a coup d'etat, he could have taken that guy out, and the CIA couldn't have installed him and brought the Shah down under Carter. But there's a lot of fake news out there about, and a lot of people are, now picking up this, I think, CIA planted fake news about the Shah being a dictator and running with it. But he's not the Shah. He's the Shah's son, who's lived here in the U.S. for 40-something years, whose daughter reportedly just married a Jewish businessman. So he's certainly not some kind of hardliner. But yeah, you talk about cutting a deal. Why not put in the prince, who obviously is pro-America, put in the prince and then cut a deal, and maybe America can get some of our money back, when it comes to what we just spent freeing the people of Iran, and not to mention everything else we've done over the years. So yeah, not to mention, again, finding some economic way to make up for the families who have been torn apart through the terrorism funded by Iran, not the Iranian Persian people. But yeah, why not put the prince in power and have a great relationship between Iran and America that we can all benefit from? I don't understand why so many people are pushing so hard against the son. Who better is on the world stage? The mullahs? How's that worked out the last 40-something years?
And by the way, he's the grandson, FYI. But
wait a minute,
guy.
The prince is the son of the Shah.
Reza Pahlavi is the grandson of the Shah of Iran from 79, as far as I understand.
No, his mother is the queen. And the mother's still living. She's the queen.
I guess we got to look it up, huh?
The son of the Shah. Yep. Son of the Shah.
Well, anyway, whatever that is, here's the thing. He is very pro-Western. He's very pro-America. He's very, very pro-Israel as a country. I mean, if that were possible, based on his stands, it would be fantastic.
Yeah, he's the eldest son of Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the Shah of Iran. Yeah, his mother was much, much younger than the Shah.
Yeah. So he would be very pro-Western, very pro-Israel. It would be a stabilizing force in the region. There are two hurdles that have to be met here, neither of which I have the answer to. One, you got to have regime change to get there. I don't want us involved with that. It requires a military process. I would not have a problem if we tried to help out those who would like to take down the regime in some manner, non-military. But the reality is that you got to have that regime change. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I don't have a good sense, and I followed him very closely because I really believe in this issue. Myra and I, my wife and I, have really good friends. She runs a dress shop in D.C. Her husband was involved in the palace back in the day. They're both native Iranian. And so we track this closely. But is he capable of being a leader? Now, I'm not saying he's not. I just don't know for sure. And that's one of those things that you get into because once a regime change happens, you have so many challenges that come. A lot of people have expectations. You have to make tough decisions that don't always meet those expectations. Even the people, the Farsi-speaking population, population that is the vast majority of people in Iran. When you have to let them down for some reason, how will they react? How will you react? So this is really tenuous. But so far, everything I know about him seems to be very positive, but a lot of challenges ahead. But it would be great if he is capable of leading and would be very pro-West and pro-Israel. I think the region could be greatly benefited by something like that if it could ever happen.
CNN, I'm going to go see if I can find it. CNN is reporting that, quote, Iran has not received any ceasefire proposal, senior official says. And that is from CNN's Frederick Politigan in Tehran. I'll see if I can find that. Okay, here it is right here. All right, here's the headline. Found it. Here it is. Okay, so we'll see if that's bears out to be true. But there's your headline right now.
Yeah, that's CNN, and that's what I got earlier. And I don't,
Well, it's
Donald
fluid.
Trump
I mean, it's
putting it
news.
out.
It's news. It's. I mean, and Annie says, and Annie is texting with me. She says, "I'm watching Iran's broadcast. No talk of it either. We'll keep you posted."
Yeah, I can't see them talking about it yet either. What they need to do is process this bomb lobbing that they did late last night and let that be. That's why they need 6 hours if the deal's there. That's what the 6 hours is about. So they can wake up in the morning and say how they defeated the Americans and it caused them to give us a ceasefire. I mean, it's propaganda. They're trying to work out the propaganda in if there's a deal here.
All right. So what else do you make of the whole thing? I mean, is the MAGA movement damaged by all this, or what's your take?
No, I don't think so. We put out in our statement today, what we're trying to make sure we've communicated to people is that Donald Trump made a decisive move, that he is committed, I believe, and still believe and did before, committed to not getting into a war footing everywhere and getting away from war and getting deals that are real. One thing, though, that I'm hearing, and I have this question as well and posted on this myself, did we really get rid of the nuclear project? I'm still not convinced that that's happened. There's no way you can do a bomb damage assessment this quickly and know for sure what happened. Plus, there's the question of months and months, everyone in the world knew where these facilities were. Well, obviously, someone in Iran, certainly their military leaders who were just killed, would be smart enough to say, yeah, let's move this somewhere else if we can, see what we can do, because they're going to take us out. And did they do that? There'd be satellite imagery to track them and see what's going in and out of the facility, of course, so maybe that's difficult to do, but I'm just not convinced we know what happened and what the full impact of these things were. In fact, I was talking to someone earlier who claims to know that it was unsuccessful in getting rid of the nuclear threat. I haven't been able to validate or verify it, but that's my big question. Where are we with that? Because that's a big issue. That's a really big issue in all this process.
Jerusalem Post says Israel to wrap up war on Iran in coming days. Defense sources tell the Post. By June 13th, they had already killed 9 out of 13 primary Iranian military and intelligence chiefs. So there you go. Did we show that?
Yeah.
I had my head down reading. Did we show it? There it is. So, I don't know. It's fluid.
Let me say this. I just want to give a quote of what I put out in my statement in what we said. I said, for those Trump supporters saying we didn't vote for this, let me say clearly, yes, you did. You voted for a decisive president who would take action in America's interest and keep us out of war. That's what Donald Trump did over the weekend. And I really do believe that. And, obviously things are always fluid. I do think he's committed to keeping us out of war. That's just my opinion. And when I come to the end of it, Colonel Manus has said the same or something very similar to that. And, I think the guy deserves our trust. that he really doesn't want to do this crap, and I'm hopeful that there's a good resolution here. We're going to find out tomorrow morning, that's for sure.
All right, what do you make of President Trump coming down so hard on your former boss, Congressman Massey of Kentucky?
So one of my former staffers when I was working for Thomas messaged me today about all this, and I'm just going to tell you what I told him. I don't get in the middle of this between them. I've got my own opinions. I'm a very, very strong advocate of Donald Trump, and I agree with him on so many things, and I'll say when I disagree. Thomas, you know, he knows what he's about. I do have some questions about, like when you look at the War Powers legislation in 1973, there are provisions in there which I think are unconstitutional, but there are provisions there that the Congress allows the president to take certain actions. All that's going to be mitigated. The reality is Thomas is out there, you know, jolly and saying what he thinks, and he's likely to get reelected, in my opinion. I think Donald Trump is trying to be decisive and do good things. And I'm still convinced that the neocon faction in the Republican Party is winning out with him. Of course, they're all having jollies over him sending out the bombs over the weekend because they just love war. And I don't think Donald Trump loves war at all. And right or wrong on his decision, he is trying to do the very best to make sure that our country's safe. And he has said consistently Iran shouldn't have the nuclear program. He's being consistent, and I think we need to be glad for that. We're going to get some good, some bad out of any president. Right now, Donald Trump has given us so much more good than any Republican president since Reagan. And Reagan's hands were really tied, and we didn't see what he could really do one way or the other. So that wasn't resolved. Donald Trump is building off of the Reagan legacy, and I'm very happy about that. Thomas is very comfortable in his own skin. He does know who he is and what he's trying to do. The only other thing I'd say about this, and I'm talking more than I typically like to talk about this, is the fact that Thomas was right on the CARES Act in March of 2020. We should never have passed that bill, one. But two, we absolutely should never have put $2.5 trillion on the table to be spent without any action of Congress. That he was absolutely constitutionally correct on. They were going to voice vote $2.5 trillion, and that is unconstitutional because the Constitution makes it very clear that Congress must have a quorum to do business. And there was no quorum. He made a quorum happen, and I think that was the right move. And so I still have a lot of positive to say about Thomas Massey, who I think is really trying to work through this from a constitutional perspective. And even if you think he gets it wrong, that's his focus. And I don't see hardly any other members of Congress really trying to do that.
Mm-hmm. Vizgrad 24 says, Iran contradicts Trump, have not received any ceasefire proposal. So we'll just see where this goes.
Where's this at? Shoot. Oh, I know where it's at. I want to read. I want to read a little quick I can't find it quickly, so we won't be able to. But anyway, I wrote.
Now we already have. Now we supposedly have someone else saying Iran official confirms Iran did agree to the proposal. So it's so all over the place, people.
I do not find Donald Trump to be the kind of guy to put out that firm a statement.
Reuters is now reporting. Now senior Iranian official tells Reuters that Iran will continue its retaliation and direct response to U.S. military strikes. That was just put out 3 minutes ago.
Oh, I think it's just amazing.
Yeah. And then 43 seconds ago, senior Iranian official confirms to Reuters Tehran agreed to Qatar-mediated U.S. proposed ceasefire with Israel. So who knows? Very fluid. This is all breaking news. Dr. Waleed Fariz. Most people know who that is by sight.
Yeah.
By sight.
Solid guy.
Okay, he says, I endured 15 years of war in Lebanon, witnessing the involvement of every faction, militias, Assad's army, Israel, jihadists, Khomeiniist, Hezbollah, U.S. and European forces, Soviet weapons, the PLO, and more, everything imaginable. There were nearly 103 ceasefires, ranging from localized agreements to nationwide truces, but no ceasefire ever truly held, as peace couldn't be achieved until the people were free. So there you go.
Harkening back to the whole Thomas situation, a little pontification here. I wrote an article after Mike Johnson became Speaker. And you'll remember that most of the members of the Republican caucus gathered together for what was supposed to have been a prayer for Mike Johnson. I looked into that crowd and saw some people. I said, wow, please don't try to make yourself out a Christian. You're not. Others that truly are. I'm looking back at all this, and in everything that we go through, there's one issue that these people in Washington, D.C. will not resolve, and that's this. We were then $33 trillion in debt. Now we're $37 trillion in debt. The Federal Reserve allows us to print this money. We write laws and don't reference the Constitution at all. We don't even think about the Constitution. And I said at the time, fine, you prayed, now what? Because prayer is about repentance. It's about setting things right. And we really need to repent for not following the Constitution, not doing the things that we need to do. In this time where war could be happening in the world, it's a good time for everyone in Washington, D.C. And of course, it's not likely to happen or doesn't seem likely. But for everyone in Washington, D.C., particularly those who claim a Christian faith, to repent and get into prayer and get into the Word of God and get into the Constitution, because that's your duty. You swear an oath to the Constitution and change your ways.
Can't argue with that.
That's what's really on plate here.
Yep, can't argue with that. We do have some good news today. Supreme Court lifts limits on Trump's deporting migrants to countries not their own, third parties. So I guess to where were they shipping them off to? Guatemala. Is that where they were shipping them off to?
Yeah, one place. And El Salvador is on the table with that too, obviously.
No, El Salvador. That's what I meant. El Salvador. Yep.
Yeah. Well, Guatemala has been talked to. Actually, that's been one potential place. So,
okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah. Listen.
So that's good news from the Supreme Court today.
Yeah, but it's temporary. Remember, this is not a permanent move, and it's a temporary one. So we'll see how that goes. The reality is that this effort needs to be happening with more haste than is happening. It's about to get funded, so it's going to be able to pick up speed. Tom Homan's going to have more resources available to him once this stinking reconciliation bill gets passed, with all of its negatives and some very good positives, but some pretty heavy negatives. But he's going to have the funding to do it. We need to undertake this. The president needs to have all the tools that he can. Congress needs to change these courts around. They need to get rid of some courts. They need to reformat our entire court system, get this thing cleaned up so that they're only making judgments on discrete cases at law, and they stop. There's this tendency towards doing injunctions goes away. We've got to reform the system. It's out of place, and the president should have these tools available to him. So kudos to the Supreme Court for allowing it, at least for now.
What do you make of Marjorie Taylor Greene? She's really defending your old boss Massey.
Well, I've talked quite a long bit about it. Thomas is his own man. I try not to represent him.
But what do you mean? What do you make about Marjorie Taylor Greene though? Because that's another person. Is President Trump going to start a special pact to unseat her?
Probably not.
No, of course.
Listen,
not.
I don't even think they're going to put in they're going to figure out that they can't beat Thomas. And Thomas is fearless on this stuff.
And isn't Thomas backed by a lot of MAGA people?
Oh yeah. Listen, and he is quintessentially a Kentuckian. Like Kentuckians are they are their own, particularly in the area of Kentucky that he lives in Appalachia. They are very self-determined people. They know who they are. They're settled in. J.D. Vance's family's from this area, and he kept that heritage as well. He lived in that area quite a bit. as he'd go down and visit family. But and so these people like a guy like Thomas, to be honest with you. It's why he gets reelected in part, because he will do what they expect him to do, and he's not worried. And they know they like his principles, and he's not worried about what anyone thinks about him.
So this idea that you can't disagree with Trump, and if you disagree with Trump, you're not MAGA, is baloney, because you're saying Massey he's backed by a lot of MAGA people in his congressional district.
Well, listen, Donald Trump is trying to make the point that Thomas is not MAGA. He's pretty MAGA. I have some disagreements with Thomas, to be candid with you. And I express them from time to time. I try, again, we're talking a long time about this. I try not to be too into it. But, Thomas is ultimately MAGA. What Donald Trump was doing over the weekend is Thomas was all over the weekend programs making his case that he has to follow the war powers, that Congress has to declare war, which, by the way, I do agree with, but maybe not on the terms that Thomas is talking about. I think that Donald Trump did have legitimate reason and authority to go do what he did, and I support it. But to go to war, to get into regime change war, it has to be Congress. So Thomas was all over the shows this weekend, and Donald Trump pays attention to that, because the one fantastic thing about Donald Trump is he understands momentum in the media. He understands what you need to do to keep moving forward, and he addressed that with Thomas. Now, whether that turns into a real effort to take him down, we'll see. Marjorie Taylor Greene supporting Thomas is evidence to me that ultimately this is likely to go away. Donald Trump's got a lot on his plate right now.
Yes, he does. But what I'm saying is I think people in the MAGA movement can agree to disagree on these kind of issues. Because
absolutely.
We're united on 99% of things, or 95%, 90%, even if it's 80%. I think people ought to have the freedom to disagree without one segment of the MAGA movement trying to destroy the other segment of the MAGA movement. Because we're going to need each other. We're going to need each other at the end of the day.
There are two very interesting things taking place right now. You've got a segment of the MAGA movement that's totally upset with Thomas Massey because Donald Trump doesn't like what he's doing. But here's the other problem. Donald Trump goes and takes decisive action on Iran to try to take out the nuclear facilities, and then you got another group going against Donald Trump and in the MAGA movement and saying that this is not what I voted for. And that's what I tried to address as I read earlier. This is what's really interesting in the dynamic here. There is about 1 to 5% of anything that there are going to be disagreements on. And yet, for some people, they're so visceral that they're willing to abandon things just because they're ticked off at it. And the reality is, we are getting a next step of the fulfillment of the Reagan promise when he was elected in 1980 to change this country, to recognize that government is our problem, it's not our friend, and that we need to free the American people to do their own business and not have the federal government tell us what to do. He's fulfilling that, not perfectly, but substantially, and in a way that no Republican has even tried to do since. And by the way, there's only one Republican, and that's George W. Bush. And to be candid, he expanded government greatly. He set the stage for us being at $37 trillion in debt right now because he doubled our national debt during his administration. Ronald Reagan was fighting to try to stop that. And the only reason he couldn't address it is because you also had to do the Cold War. He won the Cold War without firing a bullet. He has the same agenda in his mind and his way of going about it that Donald Trump has. They were both against war. Ronald Reagan got criticized for not being a Cold Warrior once it was clear that that USSR was going down. He was trying to make deals about nuclear arms. He was trying to get out of war footing. And he got criticized by the same types of people that Donald Trump's getting criticized for that very thing now. Yet he did take actions that sometimes frustrated people. The Grenada raid and some other things that he did. Panama. So, listen, we're in a good place with Donald Trump as president of the United States if we can only take advantage of it.
Yeah, look, Mark Levin, Marjorie Taylor Greene, shameless nitwit. How incredibly dumb is this Marjorie Taylor Greene? Really? Well, that's just not necessary, Mark. And I agree what she says. I don't know anyone in America. I think she actually said back, I don't know anyone that watches. Yeah, I don't know anyone who watches your show on Fox News. That's true. Whenever I see him on, I don't watch Fox much anyway, just to see what the CIA is telling us, because I think they're, in my opinion, the mouthpiece of the CIA. But whenever I see Levin on, it's just going to be more Mark Levin screaming, in my opinion, like he's having a hysterectomy with no anesthesia. So I don't want to watch that. Do you want to watch that? I don't want to watch that. So, I mean, for her, she's right. Who's watching that? I'm with Marjorie Taylor Greene. Sorry. I'll take Marjorie Taylor Greene over Mark Levin any day for many reasons. All right, that's my opinion.
When it comes to the war footing thing, Mark Levin just really frustrates me.
Indeed.
There are other things that he does that I really like.
That's right. That's it, folks. The computer's going to take it away. Take care.
Okay.
Right.